Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, mother of four, and potty talker, Ann-Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Welcome into another episode of the podcast, listeners. I'm excited to be here with you again this week. And what we're talking about this week is something that I have been actually working on and learning about for the last couple of months. Like back in May, I started a certification program to become an Enneagram practitioner, which I am super pumped about. And one of the things that I was really excited to learn more about is not just all the 9 types of the Enneagram, which I already knew. And of course, I was interested to learn more about each type. But what I was also really pumped to learn about is something that I was really unfamiliar with and only knew of with the Enneagram. And that is the instincts that color and shade the way that each type presents themselves. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. And my confession for you is really, just that, the more I learn, the more I'm able to support. The more I learn, the more tools I have to help with my clients with. And I'm going to tell you a story today about a client I have who, if I had known about the instincts 2 or 3 years ago when we first started working together, I probably could have helped him so much more powerfully with a chronic challenge that he was having. So, this is a guy that I've been working with, not just as a parent coach, but he and I hit it off so well. And we really have such a great working rapport together that he decided that he just really wanted me to be his coach in general. So, we do career work together, we do life work together, we do personal work together, and we do parenting work together. And one of the things that I have seen happen with him repeatedly over the time that we work together is that he will really be super into and excited about a new job and be really kind of go in just totally on fire about it. And very quickly, as he settles into the what I call the chug a chug of the day to day of that work, and especially this guy works with computers and he's like a total amazing, inspiring brainiac. When he gets into the part of his job where he's just kind of like by himself, just him and his computer coding and programming and things all day, he really starts to slip into, unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and I would say even a little bit of like self-doubt or, just being down. And it's a cycle that he goes through over and over again because what happens is after a while he starts to feel like unrewarded, unseen, disconnected, uninspired, all of these things by his job. And until something happens to change, like he'll either go to another job or he'll do some sort of like a lateral move, or he'll decide to do something completely new and different, but within the same company, all of those kinds of things. And then he'll start the cycle all over again. And we have done all of this amazing coaching work around that. And he's gotten better and better and better. But when I learned about the instincts earlier this year, I immediately thought of him and I was like, oh my God, this is what's missing in this work that we've done. Like he's grown by leaps and bounds, but this is going to blow it out of the water and completely revolutionize the way he looks at his entire career for the rest of his life. And I was right. So I'm pausing my story there and I'm going to come back to it at the end of the episode because first I want to talk to you about the instincts in the Enneagram. So if you don't know anything about what the Enneagram is, you might want to like pause this episode and go back a few episodes previously where I talked about all 9 types and what the Enneagram is and all of that good stuff. But right now, I'm just going to talk about something that is universal. Even if you don't know anything about the Enneagram, even if you don't like believe in it or ascribe to it or anything like that, I have a feeling that you're still going to vibe with this concept, the instinctual concepts. So the instincts in the Enneagram basically says we all have 3 primal evolutionary instincts that all human beings have because they were like baked in during caveman times. And they are the instincts that we use to survive and thrive in the world. And that first instinct is the self preservation instinct. It's the instinct that says, I want to make sure that I have enough resources. I have enough, like, I'm not going to die, basically. I have a roof over my head. I have enough food. I have, in today's modern day and age, enough money. I have physically, you know, enough wellness that I'm going to survive, meaning like I'm not sick, my body is healthy, I've taken care of myself, like I am going to live through the night. That self-preservation instinct, that's really just about looking at ourselves and making sure that we have enough and we're going to be okay. That's the self-preservation instinct, and I want you to think about it as being focused on the self and the self's like okayness in the world. Okay. The second instinct that we all have is the instinct that kept us from like being kicked out of our clan when we were cave people, right? Like it is the instinct that says, in order for a human being to survive in this world, we are communal creatures and we need to be part of a community. No man is an island. You've heard that expression before. Like the lone wolf doesn't really work for human beings. Like we need connection. We need to be part of a community. That is the social instinct. And so that is the instinct that kind of looks at what's going on in this group that I'm a part of. I care about the group. I care about the wellness of the group. I care about my standing in the group. I care about the group's functioning. So I care about what's going on, not just with me in the group, but with other people in the group too. And I want to make sure that everybody in the group is being utilized to the best of their ability. Their gifts are being, the group is benefiting from their gifts. There's nobody that we're leaving behind in the group, and especially not me. I'm not being left behind either. Like the group is healthy and functioning and a safe place for us all. We all have that instinct. And the last instinct is the instinct that is sometimes called the sexual instinct. Sometimes it's called the hunting instinct. It's the instinct that we all have to, what I like to call it, the propagation instinct, because it's the instinct that we have to like expand, create, spread out over the land, whatever. So it might be the instinct to procreate. That is a creative instinct. It's an instinct that leads to the, survival of the species. It's the instinct that we have to recreate ourselves and expand our reach in that one way. It also is the instinct to like go out and discover new things and maybe conquer new territories, experience new stuff. That expansive, creative instinct. And so if you look at those three instincts, the self-preservation, the social, and the sexual, you can also see them as almost like this expansive instinct, the like progressively more expansive. So that first self-preservation instinct is all about ourselves, right? It's about our survival, our okayness. It's about me. The social instinct is about the group. So I'm looking outside of myself and I have this instinct about the group. And I might not be going like super deep with everybody in that group, but I'm making sure that the group is healthy. That's my priority. So that instinct looks at the group. It looks expansive. I'm expanding outside myself to look at the group. The sexual instinct is about expanding even outside this specific space. So it's not even just about the group, it's about the world. It's about exploring, it's about discovering, and it's about depth. Because obviously, if you're going to be procreating with somebody or expanding yourself in the way of having a child, like you now have like this one intense relationship that has created and resulted in a new human being, right? So you can see how these instincts get progressively more expansive, progressively more inclusive almost, and progressively more intense and deep and sharing. Okay. Everybody has all three of these instincts. What is really unique about each person is not that they have all three of those instincts, but which of those instincts dominates the way that they navigate life, which of those instincts is more secondary to them, and which of those instincts is more tertiary. So it's kind of like the order or stacking of your instincts that really colors how you show up in the world. And if you're looking at it through the lens of the Enneagram, that stacking really also impacts how your type, whatever type you are, how you present as your type is absolutely colored by your instinct stacking. Now let's talk about what those instincts look like in today's modern day and age. If you're dominant self-preservation, or if you have a dominant social instinct, or if you have a dominant sexual instinct, what do these kind of people feel like when you meet them? And maybe you can even start to identify maybe what you think your dominant instinct is. In general, this isn't always true, but in general, self-preservation types are a little bit more introverted than the other two. Social types tend to have a really large social reach, but they might not have like super deep, relationships within that social group. They might have lots of friends and lots of connections and a really large network, but maybe not very many people that they are like sharing and bearing their soul to. And in general, sexual types tend to have small circles with really deep, intense, intimate relationships in them. That's one way, one of the differences that you might see with the different types. Also, in general, the self-preservation instinct, I'm going to kind of go through like where do these things show up and how do they look, right? So let's focus in on the self-preservation instinct a little bit more right now, a little bit more in depth. The self-preservation instinct tends to show up in three arenas: health and fitness or wellness, money, and then home and hearth. So a self-preservation person, their dominant instinct is about really just making sure that they are okay and have enough and they're set. So sometimes someone who has a dominant self-preservation instinct was going to like to, really make sure their ducks are in a row financially. They've got the future planned for, they're taking their care of their bills, maybe they have a budget, they really are on top of it in their money arena. Or they might love nesting. They might just love to, make sure their home is this fully stocked and pleasant place to be that feels really safe and secure to them. Or they might be, and also in home and hearth, they might be really like focused on making sure everything works well. So I've got a lot of dads who are self-preservation instinct. They just love to make sure that everything in their house is working well. They're the ones who are like, I already changed the air conditioning filter right on time. I've cleaned out my gutters 3 times this year. I, have changed the water filter in my refrigerator, like all the things that some of us are just kind of like, well, whatever, I'll wait until the air conditioner breaks or my water starts running super slowly out of my water dispenser, and then I'll change that stuff. Self-preservation person who focuses on like home probably is going to be on top of that stuff because it gives them the sense of like my, dwelling, my environment, my habitat is secure and safe for me. Some people who have the self-preservation instinct as their dominant instinct, they really more gravitate toward wellness. So they might be like super religious about exercise or really focused on vitamins and nutrition. They might be really on top of it in terms of like making sure they get a checkup every year, or being on top of it with their like preemptive preventative medicine and kind of things like that. The way that you sort of like take care of yourself, that's what the self-preservation instinct is going to show. And that's going to be the most important arena of your life, the place that you show up most you, for better and for worse. So your dominant instinct is where you are going to feel all of your like emotional, or not emotional necessarily, but like all of your personality quirks, for better and for worse. So if you've got some real like picadillos or proclivities or things that maybe aren't super healthy around, they're most likely going to show up in the arena of your dominant instinct. And if you've got stuff that's like your superpower and your gift, that's going to shine brightest in your dominant instinct arena. Okay. And I'll give you an example when I get to the sexual instinct, because I'm going to share a little bit more stuff about myself. So that's a self-preservation instinct. The social instinct, people who are really dominant in the social instinct, they are so good at reading a room, and not just one or two people in the room, the group, the entire, they can take the temperature of the group and really understand, like, oh, I really need to draw this person in because they are not being utilized the best that they could for the group, or they maybe are feeling isolated or not, not appreciated or something. They're sort of like falling out of the group, and we don't want that to happen. We don't want any stragglers. They're really, really great at noticing when somebody maybe is getting a little bit too controlling or too large and in charge in a group, and maybe helping to calm that piece down. They're super tuned into the functionality, the success, the health of the collective. The collective is the thing that a social dominant person is most attuned to and so aware of. It's like they've got a radar for it. And oftentimes, especially in a social setting, they're going to really have a great time, like kind of touching base with everybody in the room. They're probably not going to go deep with any one person. Where they feel calm and um and thriving is when the collective that they're a part of is humming and running on all cylinders. So that's the social instinct. And now let's talk about the sexual instinct. So, the word that I love that I was taught about the sexual instinct, and I feel like it is so apt, is the word sizzle. And I can't take credit for that word at all. I learned it from my teacher, Joel Hubbard. But the sizzle is what a sexual instinct dominant type of person is looking for. Now, I want to always give the caveat, just because you have a sexual instinct or if you're sexual dominant, it has nothing to do with actual sex. It might be that you really enjoy sex or you enjoy like intimate romantic relationships, but it might not have anything to do with that at all. So, this is why sometimes the sexual instinct is instead called the one on one instinct or the hunter instinct. It's not really about sex, it's really about that like energy of like, I want to feel like fireworks in everything that I do. I want to go out and try something new. I'm not super interested in the mundane. And when I am in a relationship, I want to know every single thing about you. I want to talk to you for hours. I want to feel like, oh my God, we're soulmates. I used to joke all the time about one of the challenges I used to have in friendships is that when I meet somebody and I really feel a click with them, I become like, oh my God, okay, we're best friends and we are going to like merge our lives together and let's like crawl inside each other's bodies and live together and tell each other all our deepest, darkest secrets starting now. And most people don't really enjoy that level of intensity. They really would prefer to be more on that like social arena where it's like, you're fun, I like you. And also, I am going to leave now and I'm not going to tell you every single last deep, dark skeleton in my closet. But the sexual instinct makes you really want to have that like kind of sizzly synergy, that intense feeling of like explosion in all that you do, not just relationships, but relationships for sure, but also like you want to be excited and on fire about what you're doing in your career or what you're doing with your home or what you're doing with your travel, like just really wanting to feel this like explosive, satisfying, you know, itch scratching energy all the time. And so most people who have a dominant sexual instinct can come off as like very, very intense, maybe a little bit like almost overwhelming. Um, they can be really dominant in their sharing also, like, no boundaries. I'll tell you anything. My life's an open book. They're not super private necessarily. Obviously, all of these things are generalizations. And in general, a sexual type is going to be more open, more passionate, more intense, and less reserved, less private, etc. So that's the sexual instinct. And And if you can't tell by now, my dominant instinct is the sexual instinct. So that's why, sometimes it can feel like you're drinking from a fire hose when you're learning from me. That's why sometimes it can feel like, oh my gosh, I need to go and like run away because Anne is like coming at me like a tidal wave. That is my sexual instinct. And it is what makes me super maybe interesting to people and excited and ready to like follow my gut and just go for the stars and all of that stuff. And it also is not everyone's cup of tea. So now you know that these instincts exist. I bet you can start to maybe feel into like what feels like who you are. And if you're not sure, you might even ask, your closest people to say, like, what do you think? Who do you think I am? But I used to think that I was a self-preservation type because I am very organized and orderly about my home, my finances, and my fitness and wellness and all of that stuff. But when I first started working with the Enneagram, and then especially this year when I decided to actually become certified as a practitioner, the very first thing that happened was, everybody pointing out like how intense I am, how like loud and how I live out loud and how I can like really like interject into a conversation and get like super excited about it and all of that stuff. And, everyone was like, yeah, no way you're self-preservation. You have this like sexual instinct on steroids practically. And as soon as I was able to recognize that that was true, it has become like so blatantly obvious to me. It's almost hilarious that I never saw it before. So back to my story about my client who has, really like languished and burned out once he gets into the mundane aspects of his job and when he's not interacting with other people and he's isolated in his job. I wonder if you can guess what instinct is his dominant instinct. And if you don't know, I will tell you it is the sexual instinct. That's his dominant instinct. And because this guy is an engineer and a computer programmer, it's normal. Like typically, people in his job are kind of, they're the classic like geniuses hidden away in the corner of the basement, like, you know, running the NASA space launch or something for in their pajamas or whatever, but they're really like insular and super focused on something and just plugging away at it relentlessly and all of that stuff. But that's not this guy. And as soon as I started talking to him about the instincts, he immediately recognized like why he has felt like a round peg in a square hole his whole career in this field. Not because he doesn't love computers or he doesn't love programming or he doesn't love creating software. He loves all that stuff. But he needs deep, exciting, inspiring human interaction regularly, or he will languish. And that's exactly what has happened. He needs to like get out and do new things. He can't just sit behind a desk all day. He needs to, be actually in person with people, not just on the computer with them all of the time. He needs to try new things. He needs to create something. And then once it gets to the chug a chug thing, he needs to delegate that and then move on to something really new and exciting. He's amazing at creating connections and relationships with people, with investors, for example, or with his employees. He's an incredible leader because he can get super excited and inspired about a new vision and then inspire his team about that. These are his strengths. And instead, he was trying to turn himself into a self-preservation type who just sits in the corner and, does the chug a chug all day long. And that's not where he thrives. And as soon as we had this conversation, it was like all of the other things that we had talked about for years and years and years about his needs and his feelings in his career, they all just came together in one amazing cataclysmic like revelation. And he right then and there in our session started designing like a whole new way of working and navigating his career that would, and you could just see the light bulbs going off, the fireworks happening for him. And he just started realizing like, instead of trying to make myself someone I'm not, if I design my life to feed into who I am, I will not only just be super happy and just a much happier and fulfilled person, but I will be my most effective and impactful and best self, which makes me, an incredible dad, an incredible, you know, professional, an incredible friend, an incredible son, like all of these things, because I'm honoring who I am and I'm actually like engineering a life that gives me what I need. This to me is the magic of the Enneagram. And it is also the magic of what I do with my clients. Like if you are struggling in your parenting and you just feel like I suck at this, I promise you, you are probably trying to be someone you're not, fit a standard that you can never attain, either because it's an impossible standard or it's a standard that is not right for you. And you're not allowing yourself to be yourself as a parent or as an individual. And the more you give yourself permission to learn about who you are and then engineer your life to meet who you are, you will unlock your potential to be like the most impactful, glorious, shining beacon of a parent to your child. And it all starts with doing our own work. This is one thing that I wish, like sometimes when I meet someone and they find out I'm a parent coach, they're like, what's one piece of advice or whatever? And always, my advice is never wavering. It's do your work. Like the key to amazing parenting is you being your most healthy, self-actualized you. And everything else will fall into place. All of the structure and rules, all the tricks and stuff like that. We can learn all of that stuff, but we really can only integrate it and utilize it effectively when we are being ourselves and we are in our healthiest state. If this is like exciting you, if you're curious to know more about the Enneagram, if you're curious to know what your type is, all of that stuff, like I am ready for you. I'm doing typing sessions with clients right now to help them just discover what their type is. And we get into the instincts as well. And then you have the opportunity to take that information and translate it into um, an approach to parenting that works for you and honors who you are and who your kid is. And I mean, always, even before I started weaving the Enneagram into my practice, I already was, helping parents be themselves in parenting and recognize themselves and honor who they are and who their kids are. That's the name of the game, of course. The Enneagram is just this new, extra, super impactful tool that helps us do that. And if you are feeling like you're ready for that, remember that you always have the option to set up a free discovery call with me and tell me about what you're struggling with. Tell me about your hopes and your dreams. Let me get to know you and let me help you co-create a plan that fits your family and gets you where you want to go. The link to set that up is in the show notes. I can't wait to hear from you. And like, I'm wondering, what instincts are your instincts? What are you drawn to? And what is going to help you thrive in the world? So I wonder if you're, sort of wondering about that yourself and coming up with your own conclusions about which type you are and which instinct is your dominant instinct. I will talk to you again next week. Have fun and enjoy your parenting in the meantime. Bye, everybody.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.